Good evening, councillors and members of the public. Before we commence the meeting, as usual, I will draw your attention to the fire regulations, which are on the screen behind me and the screen facing the public gallery. Can you please ensure that all mobile phones are switched to silent? Before we move on to the main items of business, I'd like to introduce the team in front of me at the round table. Marie Clark, who's planning team leader, Lara Davison, planning officer, and Patrick Arthur, deputy development manager. So the first item is the minutes of the last meeting, which have been... Oh, and here's Barry come to join us as well. That's all right, nice to see you. Minutes of our last meeting, which have been on the table for the last 30 minutes. Are you happy for me to sign them as a true record? Agreed. Thank you very much. Emma, any apologies for absence?
Yes, we have apologies for absence from councillors Mike Band, Mary Forozaski, Jeanette Sennett, Stuart Stennett and Liz Townsend.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest?
None prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Any questions by members of the public or from members?
None received, Jim.
Thank you. Marie, can I ask you about any relevant updates to government guidance or legislation since our last meeting?
None, Chair.
And would you like to discuss the performance against government targets, figures, or Patrick? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to speed and quality, both for majors and non-majors, the targets are being met and exceeded, well exceeded.
That's what we like to hear. Thank you. So we move on to the main items of business, applications for planning permission. Just to note that should we decide that a site visit would be beneficial, these will be held on Monday the 8th of April at a time to be agreed. So the first application we're considering is item A1, reference WA 2018-2205, White Cottage, Clock Barn Lane, Busbridge, GU84AZ, and the proposal is the erection of extensions and alterations following demolition of existing extensions. And Marie is going to introduce the application. Marie, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, application at White Cottage for the erection of extensions and alterations following demolition of the existing extensions. This is the location plan. As you can see, it's a detached dwelling located along Clock Barn Lane, set on a large plot. These are the existing floor plans. There's 3 bedrooms at first floor level and single-storey extensions to the rear. This can also be seen on the elevation drawings. Here are the single-storey extensions at the rear. These are the proposed floor plans. So essentially it's proposed to demolish the extensions at the rear and build a 2-storey extension in its place. The overall floor space would only be 4 square metres larger than existing. These are the proposed elevations. This here is the rear elevation. So you've got a 2-storey element coming out there with dormers on either side. These are photographs showing the existing dwelling. This is the front elevation and the eastern elevation, which faces Clock Barn Lane. And these are from the rear. Matters of consideration are the impact on the green belts, impact on visual amenity and character of the AONB and AGLV, and impact on residential amenity. I just have one verbal update. The agent has confirmed that materials will match the existing, and it is proposed to change condition 2 to reflect this, such that it would read, the materials to be used in the construction of the external surfaces of the development hereby permitted shall match those in the existing building as shown on the approved plans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Marie. Now, this is subject to public speaking, and I would invite Chris Arthur to speak in support of the application. Good evening, Mr. Arthur. I understand the procedure has been explained to you, and you have 4 minutes from when you start speaking. Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for allowing me to speak in support of our application. We're very pleased that your officers have recommended that permission is granted. As you know, this is a revision of an earlier application last year that we withdrew. The design intent of our proposed extension is, first of all, to provide a fourth bedroom. Secondly, to provide a larger farmhouse-style kitchen and dining area with views over the north garden. And also, thirdly, to add a lobby area. My wife Denise and I, we both lost our left legs above the knee in a road accident 10 years ago, and we use prosthetic legs. Now, to change from outdoor shoes, we have to sit down. Depending on footwear, we may have to take our trousers down and get the leg off, but that's maybe a little too much information. The lobby area isn't the main reason for the extension, but it will be really helpful for us. The best way to meet the design intent and to retain the character of the property is to move the north elevation out to the north. The floor area calculations are complex. I hope you found the coloured floor area graph helpful. That was Appendix A in our planning application. With help from our architect and our planning consultant, we worked out that the design intent required a 3.5 metre extension. We applied for and built a permitted development extension last year. Then we made a planning application for a 3.6 metre extension. Officers expressed concerns about this scheme, so we withdrew it so that we could try and address the contentious issues. After that withdrawal, we had very helpful discussions with our ward councillor and with the planning officer to understand how we might best move our project forward. We calculated that the absolute minimum extension to meet the design intent is 3 metres, and we felt sufficiently encouraged by the councillor and the officer to make this revised application based on 3 metres compared to the earlier 3.6 metres. So this proposal is an improvement over what's there now. It's a modest extension, and it's in keeping with the arts and crafts style of the property. We have a great community in Clockbarn Lane. We've shown all of our neighbours the drawings, and the 3 metre application has had supportive comments from every home in the lane, 9 properties in all. 3 of them specifically referred to the earlier 3.6 metre application, which they didn't have any concerns about. We've done our best to engage professionals, follow planning processes, and keep our community in the picture. So far, we're nearly 4 years and nearly £20,000 into this project. We bought White Cottage in 2003. We love the place and its setting, and we believe the effort will be worthwhile. We'd have liked to get permission for the 3.6 metre extension, but we've concluded 3 metres is the minimum to justify taking down the north elevation and rebuilding it slightly further out. It would meet the design intent. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Members. Councillor Seaborn.
Thank you, Chairman. This application is in my ward, and I asked it to come to committee in response to concerns about the use of the extension under permitted development rights. This has been expressed by Busbridge Parish Council. The succinct officer report addresses the relevant issues, and I can find no reason to dispute them. I've visited the property and I regularly drive past it, and so I'm very familiar with the setting. And in my view, the proposed extension will have no significant impact on the openness of the green belt, as is concluded in the report. The use of temporary extensions through permitted development right to establish an extended footprint tends to be a motive, but as the report points out, it's perfectly legal. What is being proposed will not significantly alter the current footprint, and it will not have a material impact on the appearance of the property from Clock Barn Lane, which is the only really relevant aspect. I welcome the officer's modification of condition 2. That was something I'd identified as being appropriate, that earlier in the report it suggests that the materials should match the existing materials. That wasn't clear in the previous wording. It now is clear, and I welcome that. And so overall, I'm totally supportive of the officer recommendation, particularly as they've amended condition 2, which just remains the one doubt that I had. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Denis.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually sitting here bemused why we were considering this application at the end of the presentation, but now I know it was called in because of the parish views. I understand that. It might have been helpful in the report to have said that, because I couldn't actually understand why we were particularly considering this one, because all the questions I think we would have asked, as you've said, have been adequately covered. So it's just that point, it'd be good to know why we're considering it. But my colleague has answered that, and I endorse what you say. I think the points have been adequately covered, and condition 2 now makes sense. So I'll be supportive. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? We'll move to the recommendation then, which is that subject to conditions 1 and 3 and revised condition 2 and informatives 1 to 2, permission be granted. All those in favour, please.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. So we move on to, I don't know if the people in the public gallery are going to leave us now. Not interested in the next one. Thank you.
We won't be very long.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. The application site is at 4 Maskell's Cottages.
Hang on, I haven't introduced it yet. They're too eager. Item B1, reference WA 2019-0054, 4 Maskell's Cottages, the street Ewhurst, GU6 7RA, and it's the thrilling proposal for the construction of a drop curb. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is at 4 Maskell's Cottages, and the proposal includes the construction of a dropped curb and associated hard standing to the front of the property adjoining the street. 4 Maskell's Cottages is situated to the west of the street and to the north of Hazelbank Stores, as shown by the location plan. It is a semi-detached residential dwelling situated in the rural settlement of Ewhurst. The proposed block plan is shown behind me, which have been reviewed by Surrey County Highways and approved with regard to the visibility zones shown. These photographs are of the front of the property, and these photographs show the surrounding area as viewed from the position of the drop curb. The matters of consideration are impact on the highways, design and impact on visual amenity and the countryside beyond the greenbelt, and impact on residential amenity. The application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members.
Just to clarify, the application is being reported to committee because a senior member of the planning team is related to the applicant.
Or the agent, actually. Related to the agent, yes. And the reason we're considering it at all is because it's on a classified road. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. It's all here in the report. The street, it's quite a mix of houses. There are quite a number of dropped curbs, and from what I've seen on the plans, there will be sufficient space to park cars from the house there, and it will not be a liability to other car owners because there is a lot of parking on the street there. I have no problems with this application whatsoever.
Jolly good. Anybody else, or shall we move to the recommendation? Right, the recommendation is that subject to conditions 1 to 2 and informative 1, permission be granted. All those in favour, please.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. There are no items to consider in exempt, so that concludes this evening's meeting.